Thank you, Angel. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CB11 Land Use and Landmarks Committee meeting. My name is Jason Villanueva, and I'm the chair of the committee. The meeting is called to order at 6:32 p.m. We are joined today by Angel Muscane, the staff liaison to our committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon and you will find the raise hand function there. If you have technical difficulty, click the chat icon and you may relay your challenge to the staff. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. The chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record when recognized. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to the discussions. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand in person and or wait to be recognized through Zoom. We will now take attendance by roll call.
Committee members, when I call your name, please answer present. Dan Brehan. Present. Kenneth Crouch. Present. Jessica Elliott. Arnice Foster Hernandez. Pascal Hanon. Present. Jewel Jones. Present. Jessica Morris. Nosa Orama.
Present.
Beverly Pabon. Derek Stampone.
Present.
Vinny Torres. Jason Villanueva.
Present.
Candy Vivas Vasquez. We have four.
Excellent. Moving on the agenda, the adoption of the agenda. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead by the board's office and was posted online. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand to be recognized. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Adoption of the meeting minutes. The minutes from our last meeting were distributed to the committee members ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand to be recognized. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the last meeting are adopted. The meeting minutes for tonight's meeting are being taken by Kenneth Crouch and myself. Announcements. Well, I have an announcement, but I definitely want to congratulate Kenneth Crouch for his efforts of presenting our work at full board last month and having our decision ratified by the full board. So thank you, Kenneth, for your efforts with both chairing last month's meeting and presenting on our behalf in front of the full board.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Informational updates. Okay. Presentations and discussions. A presentation for the proposed Metropolitan Museum of Art's 83rd Street entrance and Northside Chiller project. The Metropolitan Museum of Art is proposing to restore the 3 original entrance doors in the plaza at 83rd Street to create an additional step-free entrance to the museum's public spaces. In addition, the museum is undertaking a major mechanical infrastructure project to replace the north side chiller plant, a project that involves the installation of new cooling towers behind a new louvered screen wall. The screen wall will be partially visible at 83rd Street. This project is subject to LPC approval.
Chairman, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, we have 2 other people that are participants but need to be promoted to panelists. Alec Tomich and Henry Miller. They're in the participants category, but they're actually going to be sharing their screens.
Yeah, we'll do that right now.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Brett. We're here.
Good, because I can't do this without you. So I'm glad they're here.
Thank you.
Should we start? Are we ready to start? Yeah, okay. Henry, maybe you could share your screen and then I'll introduce everybody.
If
Okay.
somebody could give me access to share,
Okay.
Got it.
thank you. All right. Can everyone see that?
Not yet. I can't yet, but
Okay.
let's see.
So I felt a second ago. Here, try it again.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can see it now.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Sorry about that. So my name is Brett Guyard. I'm the head of capital planning at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We come before you, not frequently, but you've seen us before. Anytime we make a change to our building on the exterior that's significant, we go to all 5 community boards around the park and have a landmarks public hearing. So that's why we're here tonight. We are both an exterior landmark and an interior landmark. We are here to talk about 2 projects that we're presenting together. These are mostly interior projects that are outside the interior designated landmark area, but there are 2 parts to each there's a part to each project that's on the exterior. And so that's what we're here to look at with you tonight. Both of these are mission-driven projects, one really focusing on accessibility, the other on sustainability and resiliency. Thanks, Henry. And so I'm joined by our incredible architecture team, Michael Whetstone, Henry Miller, and Alec Tomich from Peterson Rich and Beyer Blinder Bell, who will go through the details of the project with you. We'll quickly look at historical information. We'll talk about the 83rd Street project and then the Northside Chiller Plant project, and we'll go as quickly as we can. There's a lot to cover. In terms of why we're doing these projects, I had mentioned already that they're really mission driven. The 83rd Street entrance will provide a 3rd entry point off the plaza for all of our visitors that will be fully accessible, meaning you can enter at plaza level, you can go into the Met, a new public realm, access visitor amenities, and then take an elevator or a stair up to an area adjacent to the Great Hall and enter the Great Hall and buy a ticket. So this will be really transformative for how our visitors are able to access the museum. And you'll see that it used to be there. So we're actually just restoring it. And then the second project is the Northside Chiller Plant. This is really the heartbeat of the entire institution. It's our main central plant, and we will be moving it up 1 floor because it flooded during Ida, and it's also well past its useful life. So Mike Whetstone will walk you through that project. It's really interesting. Most of it's inside, but part of it involves the roof. And so we're here to look at that with you tonight. I'll hand it off to Henry. Thanks, Henry.
Thanks, Brett. My name's Henry Miller. I'm a principal at Beyer Blinder Bell Architects. We're the executive architect for the 83rd Street door renovation with Peterson Rich office. And we'll go through that quickly. But before we do that, just some historical context for everyone's information. Looking quickly at the Met, I think we're all familiar with the building in general. It extends from 84th Street in the north to 80th Street in the south. It has this unique position in the park on 5th Avenue. It's 21 different wings built over about 100 years plus. 45 years. So you can see here the history of the wings as they were built over time. Everything in blue was present when the building was landmarked in 1967. And then the green are pieces that were added after that as part of the filling out of the footprint for the master plan. There's also an interior landmark at the Great Hall, which was designated in 1977. We're here to talk about changes to the exterior of the landmark, which is the purview of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. So these are where the 2 projects kind of live on the roof plan. You can see the 83rd Street entrances here at the facade at 83rd Street. And then behind that, this is the north side chiller plant. So this is where the cooling towers live and some of the changes that Michael will walk you through as a second part of this presentation. So zooming into the 83rd Street entrance, you can see here, just as Brett said, the really primary driver for this project is to provide increased access from the plaza and an accessible route for people who need it up to the Great Hall, visitor services functions there. So you can see the current existing condition is two entrances, 81st and 82nd Street. And there is a door at 83rd Street we'll see, which will actually restore as the three doors that were originally there. And that will be these three entrances at Fifth Avenue. This is the original 1906 McKim and White floor plan showing that, in fact, there were three doors there indicated by the red triangles. And the elevation showing that as well, here blown up with the three triangles as well. You'll see that pediment behind that is where the cooling towers are going. So you'll see some photos of that, and Michael will talk more about that. Historical photos showing the three doors in use as a public entrance on the plaza. Important to note that this was a proposal that was made previously by Roche Nickelou Architects in 2000 and was approved by Landmarks as a restoration. So we know we have a good precedent for what we're proposing. Now looking at some of the existing historical fabric, this is at 83rd Street looking west towards the museum. You can see that existing door there. It's only opened, for special events, fairly seldom basis. Zooming into that, you can actually see the kind of remnant or the scar of where those two doors to either side of the existing door used to be in place. So this was patched in at some point. You can kind of see the registration of that on the facade. As we always do, just looking at some of the other entrances for context, this is the 81st Street entrance. You can see a single door there. And then the main door is at 82nd Street. Zooming into that a little bit, we noted the oxidized bronze and the relatively flush frames and trim for these doors, which we drew into the design for the proposed 83rd Street doors. This is an overall elevation showing the existing and proposed conditions. You can see the three doors there. We've dashed in what will be the cooling tower screen wall that Michael will talk about in the distance there. Zooming in again, a little bit more detail. And then looking at the proposed work, I'm going to hand it off to Alec Tomich from PRO Architects, and he can talk about the details of the design.
Thanks, Henry. So in this drawing, you can see in the center, this is if you're standing at 83rd Street and Fifth Avenue and you look towards the museum, and you'll see the existing door lighting and signage at the center that we're proposing to remove and replace. And additionally, on either side of that center door, you see those sections of stone infill, I think Henry labeled them nicely as scarring, that will be carefully removed to restore the doors on either side. And then we'll repurpose and salvage those stones to kind of finish and restore those openings and make them look as if they've always been there. And again, as Brett and Henry both said, a major design consideration for the doors was to make them appear as if they've always been there. They were a part of the original design. And so we've aligned them with where McKim, Mead, and White had drawn them and had built them, aligned with the rhythm of the pilasters and windows above. And they remain very consistent with the appearance of the doors at 82nd Street at the top of the stairs. One kind of detail is here, as we're showing in plan, you can see the extensions of the jamb kind of allow for that recessed integrated wheelchair push button, which will help increase accessibility, which is a major driver for this project. And these are those elevations blown up. So on the left-hand side, we're showing the proposed door design. which is very differential to the existing architectural detailing of the original McKimmon white facade. So you see at the bottom, the rails of the door panel at the bottom of the glass kind of align with the granite base of the existing facade. The top of the door panel aligns with the limestone coursing, as does the bottom of a very slim soffit at the top of the opening, which also allows for a recessed light to go below and increase visibility for these doors. Also, as stated before, the materiality and finishing of the dark bronze matches the doors at 82nd Street. And this next slide is just a zoom in on these conditions as well. So at the left, you see a blow up detail of that jam extension with the integrated recess push button for the power actuated door function for accessibility. And then on the right, you see how at the sill, the door is ADA compliant, thermally broken, and flush with the bottom of the floor, the granite plaza. And then at the top, you can see that recessed light, very minimal, but allows for visitors to see those doors and these openings at night. So here, this is a detailed axon of the proposed 83rd Street doors, which paints a picture of how the system works together in 3 dimensions, and it sits within the opening and the thickness of the existing facade foundation wall. And this slide is really helpful to just show the sort of detail section of the 82nd Street and proposed 83rd Street door restoration project, documenting both the similarities and very slight differences due to some structural constraints. So between the two, at 82nd, which is in the center, and 83rd Street, which is at the right, you see that the dark bronze materiality remains the same and consistent. We're showing flush frame panels with glass infill for visitors to be able to see what's happening inside. And then you're also seeing the distance between the face of the door and the edge of the stone facade that it sort of sits within is also equal between the 2 doors. The only difference, which you can probably see, is that the glass transom is not possible at 83rd Street due to some structural ceiling height constraints at this lower level. And so we're introducing a solid transom here instead. These are just a couple of renderings. This is, again, if you're standing at the plaza at 83rd Street looking towards these restored doors, that sort of tall rectangle that you see in the center right is an existing blade signage, so that's not new, but the doors are what we're proposing. And just a 3/4 view of those same doors. And lastly, we have just a zoom in of the solid dark bronze transom panel. We're looking at introducing signage here. It's still in development, but the signage materiality will also match other signage across the facade. It'll be a light bronze, so it'll sort of blend into the language of the architecture already existing.
All right, thank you very much. I'm Michael Whetstone, also a principal at Byron Bell. I'm going to talk about the second project in this presentation, which is the Northside Chiller Plant. This is a kind of a very technical presentation, so to respect everybody's time, I think I'm going to go fairly quickly and just try to get to the landmarks essentials. But of course, if you have any questions at all, I'm happy to answer those during the question period. So first, as Henry said, the project is located at Wing W and Wing X. In pink here, it's the middle of the building. Wings built in 1950s and 1960s, so not part of the historic building at all. Next slide, please. This is a cross section showing the building from end to end, just showing the location of the chiller plant in the middle of the building, but there's a detail on the next sheet showing the cross section of where we are. So you can see here that in yellow at the bottom of the drawing is the existing central chiller plant. It floods and it's critical infrastructure and it's aging. So the decision is to move it up one floor where it can be replaced with energy efficient equipment and out of the flood zone. That's where the chiller equipment will go, and that will be connected by a pipe up to the roof where we have new cooling towers, and there's some visibility there, which we'll show you. That's really the landmarks issue. And then because the cooling tower is moving up, it's going to displace some of the museum's exhibit preparation workshops up to the third floor, where we're going to infill a couple of light wells to make a big suite of workshops on the third floor. Next slide. So that central chiller plant serves 60% of the building. It serves 1.25 million square feet of the Met, pumping chilled water to all the HVAC systems in this part of the building. And of course, at the Met, the HVAC system and the environment are critical for art conservation, maintaining 70 degrees and 50% year round. And so everything about this project is about providing the essential art conservation environment while saving energy and being more resilient. Next slide, please. And this project, in fact, according to our engineers, the new equipment, replacing the aging equipment, will save more than 50% of the energy that it currently uses. Next slide. So just an aerial view to see where we are. This is an aerial view. You can see on the left, there are some existing cooling towers that were built in 2012 with the screen wall. On the right, the red are the ones that we're going to remove and replace with new equipment. Next slide. And this shows the situation. We're going to have a similar condition on the left and the right, left being existing, the right being new cooling towers, and then a new screen wall to shield them from view, similar to the one on the left. Next slide. Just a view of the current existing cooling towers on the roof. And the next slide shows the existing ones. So here you can see in orange our array of large cooling towers, and then in front of it is a gray metal screen wall, which shields them from view. Important to know that these cooling towers will not be visible from the plaza or from anywhere on Fifth Avenue. The visibility occurs when you go down the side street, 83rd Street. You can see the top of the screen wall above the roof, and that's what we'll show you. Next, just existing conditions of where we're going to build these cooling towers. Next slide. Next slide. Just a roof plan showing where those cooling towers are. The next slide. A roof plan, you can see on the left 2 photographs of the light wells where we're going to infill some new floor space for the workshops. They will not be visible from the street at all and are in the 1950s and 1960s buildings. So really the issue we want to talk about is the cooling towers on top of the auditorium. Next slide. These are cross sections showing how that works. There's a large network of steel framing built on top of the Grace Rainey Rogers Auditorium, on top of which are the cooling towers. Next slide. I'm not going to talk about the height of these things, but essentially this is mechanical equipment and steel girders holding it up, and everything about the height from the roof up to the top is dictated by structural and mechanical engineering requirements. Next slide. So here's a view of that. You can see the screen wall perched on the back of the McKimmon and White roof. The screen wall is entirely attached to the new framing for the cooling tower, so it does not touch at all the historic masonry. Next slide. And then on the south side, as I mentioned, there's an existing louvered screen wall. Here's what it looks like. We're going to match exactly this on the north side. Next, please. And some more details of the screen wall. Next slide, please. So really the key thing here is talking about visibility. So you can see the north side and south side cooling towers marked on the aerial view. And those yellow cones show the one place where you can start to see some of those cooling towers. So as I said, can't see it from Fifth Avenue or the park or from the plaza. But when you go down those 2 side streets, 81st Street and 83rd Street, there is some visibility of the top of the screen wall. And that was the landmark's concern. Next slide. So there's some visibility on the south side. You can see a little bit on the photograph on the right. I think the next slide shows it better. So you can start to see that top of the roof, a little bit of the screen wall poking up above. This is the existing at 81st Street. So we're going to do something similar at 83rd Street. Next slide. Here's a cross section going down 83rd Street. So I'll take you on a little tour going down 83rd Street to show you how things will be visible. So the next slide, please. So starting the corner of Fifth Avenue, of course, you can't see the screen wall at all. You go back about 40 feet. You can just start to pop above the roof. highlighted with a little red line. It's hard to see behind the trees. It's really a couple of 100 feet away, but that's where you would start to see the top of that screen wall. Next slide. Going back another few feet, in the distance, you can see this thing slightly visible, just like you do on 81st Street. We think it's minimally visible and not of a great concern. And then when you go down to Madison Avenue and Park Avenue, you really don't see anything at all. It's too far away. So that's really that limited visibility of the top of the screen wall peeking above the roof for a short stretch of 83rd Street. That's really our issue. Landmarks had us build a mock-up in scaffolding to prove that that's exactly what you would see. Next slide. Photographs of our mock-up. Moving on to the next. They also asked us to take a look at the visibility of the cooling towers. We went all the way north, for example, to the reservoir, and you really don't see anything at all. It's too many trees and too distant. Next slide. The cooling towers are arranged as they are because of the structural conditions. We're able to sit our cooling towers on the existing massive bearing walls that were built in 1907. So that's how we got to the arrangement that we did with our structural engineer. And next slide. And the new cooling towers are, of course, a bit taller than the existing ones. I just want to explain what that reason is. The cooling towers on the left are lower, but they are of a type that uses a lot more energy, and they're actually no longer permitted by the New York City Energy Code. So the towers on the right use half the electricity. They do have some more height, a little bit more visibility, but that's the reason. It's really this idea of saving energy for sustainability. Next slide. Go on to the next. And then I'll just round it out at the end. Just a little bit of historical precedence. You can see in this photograph, the top left, you can see, first of all, you can see Henry and Alex 3 doors that were there in 1907 when this picture was taken, 1912. But poking above on the top, you can see a little smokestack. And there, in fact, has always been major mechanical infrastructure in this portion of the building. There was a coal-fired boiler plant built by McKimmett and White in 1911 that had a huge smokestack, and that was visible. And then the next couple of slides show that future iterations of mechanical equipment and cooling towers. There's always been some slight visibility of mechanical equipment in this area of the building. So we just wanted to go through that history for landmarks to say that that kind of partial visibility is just something that comes with a building of this size, but we think is, in our case, is minimal and not really a great concern. So thank you for listening to all that, and welcome your questions, comments.
Thank you for your presentation. Members of the committee, do you have any questions? Jessica Elliott.
Thank you for your presentation. It may seem silly, but I'm also an architect and we do this kind of view study stuff all the time. I'm just curious, it looked like the existing louver is a metal louver equipment screen. That's the same plan for this new louver. Is it a product or is it a custom metal fabrication? And I'm sure we're meeting the requirements for wind loads.
Yes, that's a good question. Yeah, no, it is actually a manufactured aluminum louver, and yes, our engineers have designed the structure behind it to support it for wind loads.
Thank you.
Any other members? Any questions? Beverly Pavone?
Thank you for the presentation. I'm understanding that the community board aid have already gave you the okay for all of this.
Yes, we presented to them first, actually, which was about a month ago, and they approved all of this.
Okay, and back in February, I know we did now you did a presentation for another part of the museum, probably further south. Would this impact that? I think it was for the skylight replacement of the ancient Near East Gallery. Would this have any impact on that, being that the towers would be taller?
No, and I don't know if we have there's an elevation of the whole front of the museum, and the just because of the way the slope works, the north side cooling towers are actually lower. Do we have that drawing? It's a great question. They're actually lower. So just so I can thanks everybody. Yeah, so maybe we can circle. So the ancient Near East roof replacement is over there. And it's about, is that 2 blocks away?
Yeah.
It's about 2 blocks away. And we're taking the skylights off and putting an opaque roof on at kind of this angle. And this is happening actually in plan further back 2 blocks away on the north side. Afterwards. So the reason we come to you so early on these is because the lead time on the equipment is so long, and we don't want to buy it without having approval for it. So we come a lot earlier than we actually are planning to start construction. So the Ancient Near East and Cypriot Galleries project is about to start imminently. And this is a little bit further away on the outside. I think the cooling towers are like at least a year away, if not longer, from going up if we get approval.
Correct.
And my last question is, there's a portion of the museum that looks like a part of the museum was skylights. Would these towers be visible from inside the museum? If people look up and see them?
So I think I might be able to answer this, but Michael, please feel free to jump in. I think the skylights that you're talking about is actually a staff space, not a public space that's adjacent to where the cooling towers are going. I don't know if we want to look at a plan, but so they wouldn't be visible from the public looking up. They would be visible from the staff, but they are already.
If you go back a couple, Henry, that's a good one to stop on.
Yeah.
Those
It's
cooling
that.
towers that would not be visible from any public spaces inside the building. You can see where their various glass pieces are. Yeah, they're not.
And the skylights on the arch skylights that you see, that's where the horses are, right, guys?
That's the Arms and Armor and musical instruments. That's right. But yeah, even from the floor of that gallery, you would not see this equipment. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too steep an angle.
And my last question is regarding the doors. You have one door that's there now. Would that door stay there? And you have 4 doors, or you removing that door or also?
So we would remove that door and replace it with doors that match the 2 new doors that are going on either side. Right now, that door is opaque and it doesn't read as actually an entrance because we only open it when we have events. So we wouldn't change the opening, the existing masonry opening, but we would take the existing door out and put a new door in that matches the other 2.
All right, thank you so very much for your answers.
Mr. Torres.
Thank you. So thank you guys for that information. So few questions. You mentioned that this project on the restoration and the doors, entry restoration was approved before through Landmark.
A version, yes.
Or a version. Okay, so it's different from what's being proposed now.
That's right.
Okay.
The way the doors look, the openings are the same.
That's right.
Okay.
In 2001.
Okay, and then on the removal of the Indiana limestone, once you fill in for the new entries, I'm assuming 6'3", the 2 doors, you can go slide 29.
Okay.
The new doors are 36 each, symmetric on each side.
Each of these leaves here. Let me go
Yeah.
to the plan, and we can see the actual dimension of the opening. So that's 6'3" wide. So each of the leaves will be 3 foot plus a half an inch, or an inch and a half rather. So they'll be a little bit wider than 3 feet each.
Okay, and that allows it to be ADA compliant.
Correct.
Okay, so can you go back to slide 29? When you do the removal and then the reinstallation, how do you maintain the edging on the limestone? You see how it has the recessed panel look?
It's a great question. So I think it's a 2-step process. First is to really document the building carefully, look at how it was put together, and then work with a contractor who's very skilled in that type of work. And they will be very sensitive to selecting stone that matches the existing, patching it in a way that's as seamless as possible.
Okay, and then on the chiller plant, the installation of the new plant, shield wall height, what's the height of the new shield wall? Is it over 12 feet?
It is actually 29 feet off the roof of the auditorium to the top.
Boy, and that new chiller plant is gonna cover 60% of the building. Where's the other existing plant that covers the other 40%?
If you go back a slide, Henry, yeah, you can see right there. You can see on the left side, those are the cooling towers for the other 40%.
So what's the height of that shield wall there?
That's actually a few feet higher. So the one that we're building is a few feet lower.
Got it. And then is my final question, the GM and CM brought on board for the project, is it any certification requirement? Is there the contractors that are coming on board to do this work, are they required to meet obviously the standard, but are they also required to have a certain certification?
For a certification for what, sir? Is there something specific?
For landmark restoration.
Oh, understood. Yeah, so the contractors we choose all have experience working on individual landmarks in New York City. So I don't know if there's a specific certification for that. I don't think so, but they're all very, very experienced with buildings that you have been to and know throughout the city.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the members of the committee? Seeing no other, Mr. Muscane.
Just a quick one. Brett, when is this scheduled to go before LPC? You're muted. You're still muted.
Sorry. Sorry. I think December 17th is the date we're aiming for, right?
That's correct.
Architecture. Okay, so December 17th, we're targeting for a public hearing. So we're seeing you all tonight, and then we see
7.
CB7 tomorrow, and then we will have gone through all 5 community boards, and then I think we're hoping that you have time for your executive committees. I know that there's this chess game that we have to line up, and then we'll go before LPC December 17th.
Thank you.
I was gonna vote on it today.
Yeah.
We don't have any other board business, so if you do not mind holding, as we discuss internally, our position of providing you a letter of support for your project.
Whatever you need. That sounds great.
Okay.
We're here.
Brett, all right, excellent. So we'll put you on you can hear it in public discussion. Speaking to the members, outside of, it seems like there's a very dismal concern about being able to see the shield wall from like 100 feet. I don't see an impact to the community and our district. I see an upgrade for the existing facility, and I am not in the business of preventing people from doing their business. And I find the conversation very compelling to provide them a letter of support, knowing that they're still gonna have to go through Landmarks Preservation Committee. For other members that aren't familiar, they're still gonna have to go through the Department of Buildings. They're still gonna have to go through a mirage of other agencies to get this project approved. And I don't think we want to delay it any further, given some concerns with the new administration that might come. Right? So if we'd like to debate, we could debate. If not, I'm more than willing to hear a motion.
Motion to give them a letter of support.
Second.
We got Jessica's hand up. I'm with you.
I thought maybe she was making.
I'm with you. She may have a debate.
To provide a letter of support.
Oh,
All right, so we'll give Jessica Elliott the motion and then second. That's fine. All in favor? Aye. I hear no opposed. Congratulations. Good luck on your project, Brett. We look forward to seeing you down the line.
Yeah, come visit us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All
I
right.
have
Bye.
my list of tours coming up.
Okay, good.
Bye.
Good night.
Well, that was the most difficult part about the evening. Now comes the more sensible and fun stuff. Mr. Crouch has been working with Maggie's Garden and some of the other members of the committee have been, as you know, we really want to get involved in the landmarking and the preservation of the district. As you can see, a project that was landmarked before any of us were born is still maintaining some sense of integrity. And I think that there are other buildings within and parks and other scenic views within the district that are going through heavy development right now that could be preserved if we assist them proactively. As we saw with Maggie's Garden, the problem isn't interest, sometimes the challenge is, for lack of a better word, opportunity or the know-how. And I know Ken has been working real hard on that, and Ken, I want to again applaud you for your efforts. So we have it scheduled for them to come here next month. That being said, there is a plot, or I should say plan, to have a pre-con discussion with that entity being Maggie's Garden within our district, but more importantly, with the historical council, right? And I think that members of the committee should support Ken in his efforts. Particularly, I know Jessica Morris has been a strong advocate over the last few years for preservation, so I will implore you all to share your contact information with Ken. Not everything has to go through Angel, right? Angel has a lot to do on his plate. We can cross collaborate with each other as adults, right? That's my pun for a joke. In my classes, my students have to raise a document that says lab, so people could get them. But with that being said, I just want you to know what's on the table, on top of cross collaborating with SDN, which I would love to give our chair a round of applause from SDN. We're also getting through that process with you all in October. And that's our plan, right? That's our action. And most of the things that we concern ourselves with at committees where we handle business, right? But throughout the next 30 days, if there are concerns, questions, or viable projects that you believe that we should be reviewing, you all have my number and or email address, and I think we should do that. So before I recognize you, Jessica, I would just like to give Ken the floor to pretty much talk a little bit about that and what are the next steps. So that way we can use this as a pilot process to start advocating and more importantly, reaching out to other constituents within our district to save their land.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for all your kind words and discussion. I think it's so important to move in that direction, to really move towards preserving things. And so with Maggie's Magic Garden, we're meeting with the Historic District Council in East Harlem. We're going to figure out a date and just see what the landmarking process looks like for them. And if not, what are ways to preserve the character of the garden, to preserve the community that's there. In speaking with some of the folks at Maggie's Magic Garden, Mr. Betancourt, one of the members, he mentioned they have a petition of 900 signatures. So they have a lot of people who are really supporting this garden, who either connected to it, use the garden, use the space, or, appreciate the space. And so that kind of leads me to my next point. I really love for folks to reach out to me or Jason and let's talk about and identify places and spaces in our district that we want to also proactively look at landmarking or finding ways to protect those places. And preserving the character of the community that we have. So yeah, just keep us posted and please send those things away.
Thank you, Ken. You have a question to this or something else?
No, so is there a plan to take the garden from them?
So there's some dispute with some like the institutional neighbors. I think is it Mount Sinai or no, maybe Children's. Yeah, sorry, Children's. Yeah, is right next door. There's some dispute, like some of the trees are being trimmed and cut, and so it is changing kind of the fabric of the garden. So the hope is to kind of in part mediate that, but also give the garden more of a formal legal status so that it can stay there.
They came here, just to give you some more context, they came here a few months ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
And their complaint was that construction was happening and there was no, for lack of a better word, respect for what's being there because they don't have that designation. The reality is that they do have a more historical designation, as we know. You see what's happening here with LPC. They won't just be treated like, the backyard garden, for lack of a better word, right?
Right, have trees damages this sort of.
I thought maybe it was Green Thumb.
I'll double check. I have
Yeah,
it.
because if it is, I mean, I know that Green Thumb has a lot of pull that they wouldn't be treated like this if Green Thumb was involved and knew about that.
Thank you for that. That may be an avenue, Ken, for us
Yeah,
to
good
look
point.
at on that and see if she has that status.
Yeah.
To assist her with some of the complaints that are going on in that area right now. Jessica Morris. I mean, Elliot, sorry.
I'll let it slide. I just have two questions. Well, one question, one comment. I guess the first question is, do we understand the criteria from like what is. Like, for example, for licenses and permits, if someone wants to name a street after them, they have to have, you know, met these certain criteria. I'm sure there's the same criteria. Do we know and have we confirmed that Maggie's Garden meets that criteria?
So we're still trying to figure it out. We do know it would qualify as what's called a scenic landmark, so
Okay.
there's slightly different requirements. I did find a few community gardens that have been landmarked before, but they're downtown. I don't know what some of the specificities are with those gardens, why they qualify and why we wouldn't. So I think hopefully when we meet with folks from Historic District Council, they'll tell us the more concrete steps and if it would qualify here, but we're hopeful.
Right. Yeah, I
The
think we
hard,
accept it.
the hard response is no.
Yeah.
We do not
Yeah.
have a process at CB11 per se to identify and qualify that, right? We have our presentations and what we do for EULA. We're trying to create, hopefully right to the end of my tenureship, we have that practice, right? And we create a system that if someone wants to sign up, you know, they have a place to voice it, and then we're collaborating with the agencies to put them in the right bucket, right, for lack of a better word.
My deepest fear with this is that for some reason out of our control, that there's no way we can get it landmarked and that we've sort of led Maggie's Magic Garden on this road to believe that we can assist them in that. And I like, you know, I think most reasonable people would be able to say, you know, well, we tried and great effort, but I think like specifically, you know, gardens and like places that have this level of, you know, devotion, they, you know, you can see the guy that, you know, is trying to get the street named, like, people can take it really seriously, and I just don't want anyone to be upset with us for like, quote, misleading them on a process, but.
I think we've been very,
Okay.
I'll interject on that, because we've been very direct with, the garden as much as any of the constituents. We're an advocacy,
Yeah.
organization, so our effort is to advocate. We're definitely not committing or advising them or directing them or affirming anything. It's more of just, you know, the good faith effort of working with them and collaborating with them, with the proper agencies so that they can be heard.
Right, I just, you know, I think speaking to
Yeah.
some people from this garden specifically, like, you know, thinking that we're like paid board members, like there can sometimes be a disconnect between, you know, what the truth is and what, so hopefully we're, you know, we're just hopefully leading them down that path. And the other question is just about that construction comment. When we went to visit them and over the summer, there it was brought up about the construction fence and, you know, we can say things or, you know, it's just worth confirming that the construction fence is where it's supposed to be according to like Department of Buildings, like construction requirements, because like unfortunately, you know, I know she was concerned about where that fence was placed, and of course, if it's in the wrong location, then it's something that I think we should advocate to get resolved, but you know, if it is in fact in the right place, then, you know, how do we work with them to, you know, make sure that they understand like the realities of construction, like they have to be able to access the site and like, if it is green thumb, which I'm trying to check.
It is, yeah.
Okay, great.
That's good to know. That's-
So I've looped them in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a contact, Cynthia, that I can connect you with at Green Thumb.
That
Okay,
would be great, yeah, I would appreciate that, and I'll just add to, yeah, I think our goal is really to empower them, not to take those steps for them,
Yeah.
so. That's hopefully what this first meeting with the Historic District Council will be about, is really just, these are the steps. And again, there aren't many landmark community gardens at all, so that may not, that's, you know, I can't predict, but you know, maybe won't be the outcome here, but I think what will happen is the folks will have tools they need to. Feel that their voice is heard, the garden is protected, and that it's preserved for the future, so yeah, great point.
I think once we develop a practical process, then we can start pushing them back to the committees that they necessarily belong to work out those strategies with parks or if it's economic development or whatever other committee. The reality is we don't have that formal process, so I'm excited just in listening to you guys cross collaborate already. And I see it being more of a surplus for the district and us being intentional with this effort. Unless, of course, if there's anyone that opposes, then, you know, I'm always open to different options. And then Nilsa.
Oh, no, I just want to say it's green thumb.
Awesome, thank you for the information, Nilsa.
You mentioned that there was some downtown parks that may have, gardens that may have been landmarked. Has there been any outreach to them to just get a sense of what was special about them, or
Yeah,
what was their process to see how that might match up with Maggie's?
No, that's a great point. So I brought it up with Frampton at district council. We'll see what they say about that. But yeah, I haven't talked to them. That's a good idea because I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the particulars of why it was like, but it's there. So yeah, it's worth reaching out. Other people put down those things.
It was over the summer, completely off topic, but it's similar. I found this organization called the Hudson River Park Trust. And they operate a publicly funded to manage the entire west esplanade from 59th Street to Battery Park. And I need not tell those of us that have been advocating for our esplanade, I know I've been doing it as a board member going on 10 years. We're constantly told that there is no method or interest unless there's private, for lack of a better word, private investment. And I'm interested in that type of, it may be a big hurdle, but if we could start it and assist parks and assist the district needs as the land use landmarks committee, then it's an effort well spent. I just started building relationships with Hudson River Park Trust and studying it just to see how we can mirror if that type of process over here. Because anyone who goes, up to 86th Street, it's nice and pretty because the hospitals maintain it and spend bukus of millions of dollars. After that, good luck on the esplanade, right? We're constantly being told it's falling apart, even though there's so much construction happening there through the Department of Transportation and Highway Authority. I would think there would be some interest to invest in that. So like anything, we have to start the conversation here, the rhetoric begins, and then we can advocate. So I think our intentions are in fair play, with what the committee wants to do proactively as opposed to what we typically do with ULUs, which are reactive.
Just based on what you're saying and, in contacting, let's say, any gardens or identifying, any gardens that were landmarked, I'm wondering if there's a mechanism for the public to review any applications that we put in for the landmarking status, because that might give, any committees, like Preservation Committee or Environmental Open Space and Parks, the ability to look at what was filed and how it was worded, to see if there's anything that could be derived from that, but obviously that's.
It's a process, and that's the point of us, again, since I've been chair, everything's land use. So now I'm trying to get us some landmarks and hopefully we'll be proactive in the urban planning as opposed to reactive, which is usually the case. I will also say we should reach out to Chris Cirillo from Ascension. I know that there is a nonprofit organization out there with something that forgive me, I don't remember all the acronyms off the top, but I know Ascension was coordinating with other, and what's the point? They did a lot of that groundwork in doing the recon and seeing how things could be landmarked, et cetera. So that way we don't reinvent the wheel, we collaborate with a local constituent, and just start tracking and beginning a process. That would be more exciting for those of us that want to be ahead of the process.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal, I feel like. Yeah. How do we deliver what we see and what we want to have for a long time? Yeah.
We're only responsible for the effort, not the outcome. All right, that's old business. Does anybody have new business? All right, I guess we'll adjourn and we'll call the roll.
Dan Briha, President. Kenneth Crouch,
Present.
Jessica Elliott. Pascal Hanoum, President. Jewel Jones.
Present.
Milso Rama,
Present.
Beverly Pabon,
Present.
Derek Stampone,
Present.
Benny Torres,
Present.
Jason Villanueva.
Still here.
We have quorum.
Meeting adjourned at 7:26. That's a record. Good evening.